Good morning and welcome, and thank you all for being here. We'll probably be joined by some other people as things get going, but let's get started for now. My name is Chris Ott, and I, since last fall, have served as the president of an organization called the Wisconsin Association of Railroad Passengers, and I'm here today with some great colleagues and allies, including Mark Quam, the president of All Aboard Wisconsin, Gary Goike, the legislative representative of All Aboard Wisconsin, Susan Foote-Martin, the vice president of communications for WISARP, Ian Weiser, the vice president of internet communications for WISARP, and Representative Lori Palmieri, the leader of Wisconsin's new passenger rail caucus. We'll all have more to share today, but for now, at the outset, I wanted to say just a few words about success and what success can look like. When people think about trains, successful trains in the United States, they often think about the East Coast, especially the Northeast Corridor. And if you're not familiar with that, for many, many years, there has been frequent train service between Boston and Washington, D.C., with, of course, big cities like New York in the middle. And it's just been very well used for a long, long time. And about 25 years ago, Amtrak introduced a faster, more modern service called the Acela, which became even more popular. And within a year or two, it even captured a significant share of the air travel market on the East Coast. So that has been one of America's big success stories for passenger trains in the last half century or so. But did you know that Wisconsin has some real success stories for passenger trains too? The Hiawatha train, which we share with the state of Illinois, which runs between Chicago and Milwaukee, in terms of ridership and revenue, is one of the most successful trains in the country. And it's easy to see why, because for a number of reasons. One is that the Hiawatha makes that run between Chicago and Milwaukee, serving some other communities as well, about a half a dozen times a day, so it's convenient for a lot of people. Most people can find a train that works for whatever it is that they want to do. It's really affordable. The fares vary, but usually around $20, something like that. The trip time is pretty short. It takes about an hour and a half from downtown to downtown, so that's really convenient for a lot of people. The trains are spacious, and about a year and a half ago, we were able to, about half the fleet was replaced with new cars, and the renovation, all the cars will be new as of sometime this year, is my understanding. So it's got a lot going for it, and those are some of the things that have made the Hiawatha such a success. But Wisconsin has a second success for passenger trains. And that, I think, is even more interesting than the Hiawatha in some ways, because the new train it started about a year and a half ago, called the Borealis, which runs between Chicago and the Twin Cities, is a very different train from the Hiawatha. You may hear people, detractors or skeptics about trains say, okay, yeah, like it can work in, between really big cities, densely populated areas, but no one's going to ride a train anywhere else. America's too spread out, It's not true, and the Borealis shows it. The Borealis travels, nearly 400 miles, and it's not a short trip. It takes about 7.5 hours. It's unlike the Hiawatha with its half dozen departures throughout the day. The Borealis only goes once, so if that doesn't suit your schedule, you're kind of out of luck. And though the trains are spacious, the equipment that the Borealis depends on is around 50 years old. So definitely could use a refresh there. Despite the modesty of this train, it's been a huge success. It's really exceeded the ridership projections that were made before it launched, and fairly often, or very often, it's crowded, and sometimes it's even selling out in the summer, the peak travel season, or on holidays, sometimes on weekends. So it's very well used, very popular. So what I think this shows is the demand for passenger trains throughout Wisconsin. So let's work with that. And I called the Borealis train a modest train, and it sort of is, but it's hard to get excited about modesty. So let's talk about success again, and let's talk about what it would take to make train service in Wisconsin even better, really good. And we'll talk about that more today, but it comes down to investing in making the services that we have even better and really expanding them to serve other parts of the state that don't have train service today. Let's take some of those successful Hiawatha trains and run them north from Milwaukee to serve places like Washington County, the Fox Cities, and Green Bay. Let's run them west to serve the Milwaukee suburbs in Waukesha County, and then to Jefferson County and Dane County. Let's add frequency to the Borealis so that it's not just once a day. Let's bring cities like Eau Claire into the network, and let's get some new equipment for that train. We'll have more to say about all of that. I wanted to just tell you briefly a little bit about WISARP. We are a tax-exempt nonprofit organization, which means that we don't and can't get involved in electoral campaigns, but we can and do educate and advocate. We have a statewide volunteer board, and many of them are here today. Could those of you on our board, including the advisory board, put your hands up? I guess we've got a lot up here, but we've got a statewide board. So thank you all for being here. We've got hundreds of members around the state, and our membership is growing, another sign of the popularity of this. So let's, and what we aim to do is to educate the public about the benefits of trains, build the support that's needed, and serve as a resource to elected leaders and our champions in this effort.
My name's Mark Quam. I'm president with All Aboard Wisconsin. All Aboard Wisconsin formed back in 2012, and one of the things I think that's interesting about All Aboard Wisconsin, we felt that often there was not a good connection between public transportation, such as intercity buses or transit systems, and somehow could we better connect public transportation with rail. And I think that has always been a key component, driving factor of All Aboard Wisconsin, is to build better interconnectivity. And so I believe our hope is that, as we move forward, one of the great opportunities with WISARP and with All Aboard, we're partnering together to do more joint outreach efforts. And I think we're much stronger, when we can advocate publicly together. And I guess bottom line is, we all have our own separate little outreach efforts, but yet at the same time, we don't want to duplicate efforts. So I think our goal is to basically work together, to do those outreach efforts. I'm originally from the Madison area out by DeForest, so I'm very familiar with Madison. I currently live in Eau Claire. I lived in the Twin Cities for a short time. And I think, for All Aboard Wisconsin, it's really important that we, continue to get more legislative funding and really expand the opportunities and options for Wisconsinites. Living in Eau Claire, with our proximity to the Twin Cities, I think, passenger rail has become really important for people in the Chippewa Valley, but also I think, there's been a strong desire to get Madison connected to Eau Claire, the Twin Cities, and obviously Milwaukee and Chicago. And so I think really with All Aboard Wisconsin, we can work towards those goals, and obviously WISARP plays a key factor here too. So anyways, I want to personally thank all of you for coming out here today. I think, I'm thankful that, we have a rail caucus that is really going to try to move the dial forward here, because it's really a team effort. And I think, teaming up everybody, with our efforts here, it does make a difference, and it definitely has an impact. So anyways, thank you again for coming, and if you got questions, feel free to follow up.